Directors on the Zoom, if you can please text me your vote again as well. When the vote happens, nobody does any difficulties. All right, we are live. So for everyone's attending reference, the meeting will be live streamed. If you continue to stay in the room, I assume that you consent to recording. Should you feel not comfortable to be recorded, feel free to leave the room and join via Zoom. Let's address. Now, the meeting starts at 6:32 p.m. We would like to acknowledge the land we meet on today, traditional lands for the Ghana people, and respect their spiritual relationship with the country. We also acknowledge the Ghana people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region and their cultural and heritage beliefs. It's important to living Ghana people today. Declaration of conflict of interest. The all directors and officers in attendance declare their breadth and consider all papers within its agenda that require decision making and have no known conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest with respect to these matters. Anyone with a conflict of interest? Yes,
I'd
please.
like to declare a conflict in item number 8.
So, okay. Do you want to provide some reasoning as to why you are?
I do not believe I'm in a position to uphold my duties and obligations as a director, based on some information we've just discussed. And I believe this falls within the definition of a conflict of interest, as per the roles, responsibilities of board president, executive officer, blah, 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 where it says any situation where a member or stakeholder may, or potentially may be in a position of being involved in a decision or action where they may not be perceived to be able to put UX's interests first and foremost. I do not believe that I will be able to do so for this item.
After you declare the conflict of interest, would you like to leave the room when we discuss that item?
I'm happy to leave the room. I'm also happy to stay in the room and just not exercise the vote. I put that to the
It is obviously up to you, but we just know
in
that.
that case, I will stay on my vote.
Yes, we need to write that down. Conflict of interest. Now, before I move into the agenda today, it is very important that this is the first time I think for the year we open the boardroom to everyone, because the tradition requires it. So can I please ask all attendees, if you choose to stay in here, you are to abide by the instructions of the chair and respect the board's need to conduct its business. And if I can please ask everyone here to please be respectful, especially your comments. That would be great. If not, I will have to give you a warning and ask you to leave on the second time for all the attendees' information. So when the board conducts its business, I expect everyone to please follow the standing orders and again respect all attendees and board directors. Now,
Oscar, can we just see who's online?
yes, so I think Oliver Douglas, and so 2 directors are online.
Right.
And then we have Alyssa Foster, Grace Atta, Jasmine Louise, and Jonathan. I don't know how to say his surname. Now, first item, moment of silence, as we note the passing away of Queen Elizabeth II. Just like to take a moment for us to mourn and think about the great contribution the Queen has made to the world and the impact that she has made to the world. So we'll just be silent for a minute. Thank you, everyone. Now, motion passing of Queen Elizabeth II, Felix and Isaac. Oh, yours.
Isn't that an unstarred item?
The answer item is after that.
No, like, isn't that an unstar?
No, so answer item is
okay,
number
right.
5, so we go through this first.
I mean, I don't think I need to explain that. It's just a pretty procedural condolence motion.
Zach, would you like to say anything on that?
Well, I thought that it was quite a nice motion for Felix and I to work on collaboratively. We both have a deep respect for Queen Elizabeth II and all she did.
Can I please ask you to refrain from making any comments, please?
Throughout her lifetime. Yeah, we moved this motion out of respect for her, and God save the King.
The recommendation reads that the board acknowledges the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, recognizes both the tremendous and long-standing service she has provided to this country, extends our condolences to the royal family in this time of grief, and wishes the new king a long life and prosperous reign. Already moved by Felix and Isaac. Is there any dissent on the matter? If there's none, we will note there is a unanimous support for that vote in the minutes. Unstarred agenda items, that all unstarred items are approved. Does anyone wish to start any items?
Just want to double check. Of all of the new agenda items we'll put in with half an hour, I've noticed
They all
that
start.
Okay.
They all start.
There's one sentence I'd like to change in one of the minutes, but I'm just trying to work out what wording.
Okay, so which particular?
So, or if I just be lazy and let it slide. So regarding the first meeting, which is the one where we first discussed rule concerning camera and all that kind of stuff, it says, so under the proposed rule classification will have to be given. I'm just trying to work out what a better way of phrasing that is, because that's not quite correct. So maybe under the proposed rule, the executive would have to vote at a certain threshold to move in camera or categorize it as an item in camera.
Do you get the exact wording? The executive?
So under the proposed rule, which is already there, the executive would have to vote at a specific threshold and then carries from to move in camera or categorize an item as in camera. So the rest of that just carries on.
When do we establish that threshold?
That's just in the rules.
This is in the
That's
minutes. So this is just the intent. I think it's just
Did you get that wording?
Under the proposed rule, the executive would have to vote at a specific threshold.
to move in camera or categorizing it.
Yeah, to move in camera, so maybe. Yeah, are you happy with that? Okay, the recommendation then will be that the board accepts the minutes of the amended that the board accepts the amended minutes of the meeting of the 11th of August 2022 as a true and accurate record. Can I move the resolution? Moved by Felix, have a second of that resolution. Second by John. John, ideally you don't second that because you want Natalie, so I believe as a seconder.
I didn't say figure out.
John, I will put that. I will put you as. John, I'll put you as abstaining from the vote because you weren't part of the meeting. That's okay for the board. Will there any dissent? There's none. I declare it carried. YouX President's report. I will hand my chair to Isaac.
Thank you. And we may begin.
So as normal, we are working on the section misconduct policy, the expansion of the scope to clubs, which is a great thing, because previously there's no way for students that have experienced sexual misconduct in the club space to address that. It was great for the agency to take that on the shoulders. Open day, thank you for directors who volunteers with myself on open day. I hope everyone had fun in that. Food truck feast, it was a very fantastic event. I think it was very, very well attended, something that we should be very proud of. And I think all the students that I've spoken to thoroughly enjoyed it. And unfortunately, we were out of food quite early, actually, like 2 p.m., I think, Gary. But it was fantastic. Attendance, I think, was fantastic. Yeah, great engagement, great, way for us to put our brand forward, especially a great way to launch a new brand. Student-led teaching award, I'm trying to start that back up again. I will give you a bit more update when I know more. So consultation amending the membership requirements, we are starting a consultation on that to try to raise that bar. So the clubs committee are quite anonymous on that. Luke, feel free to speak on that as well. That we are thinking of raising that bar up above 50%, because at the moment it's 50%. This does not obviously block students from attending the club events. It's just mainly the membership who can vote in the AGM. Because we are a self-funded organization, if we are putting student money towards this, it's important for us to ensure that majority of them are UO-based students. Again, this is just consultation period. We haven't, 80% was a ballpark figure. Obviously, we're open to other suggestions, and a recommendation will come to the board after the clubs committee consider the survey results. On the article, something we can talk about later. I would higher ed policy unit. Anyone has any opinions, please forward them to me. Because I received a letter from Deputy Premier Susan Close on the matter. That was it.
Wonderful. Any questions or comments in relation to Oscar's report? Felix?
I understand that you said it was a ballpark figure, the 80%, but who or which group of people came up with 80% as the ballpark
It
figure?
was just in the clubs committee, we just have a rough discussion about it, and like, if anyone else thinks it should be lower or higher. Obviously we're open to
It's
that.
very much a suggestion at clubs level, and that's why the survey's gone out, and the results are waiting to be analysed, if they've even been fully collected yet.
So can I just ask, so that, are there particular clubs with a large number of non-students?
No, I don't think so at the moment. We have faced an issue in the past. One particular club has raised particular concerns around that. And I think the main goal here is that we want to ensure that whoever is in a club the club is controlled by University of Adelaide students in a way, roughly. And to make sure that, we're spending money on UO-based students, not, students that are outside of our university. That's just the intent of this, really.
This is perhaps a question for Luke, but
Yes.
assuming that this consultation provides a result that is in favour of some kind of raising threshold, whether it's 80% or 75% or some other percent, when would this be implemented by the board, and when would this take effect in clubs?
I think so. Ultimately, we're still waiting on the results to be processed, but as soon as they are, and probably following the next clubs committee meeting, hopefully at best, I'm unsure of the exact timeline, but following that, it'll get brought to board regardless of the result, and we can discuss it at a board level. Yes.
Suppose that, and I'm just pulling with the 80% figure just because that's what we're discussing, and there was a club that was over 80%. Do you accept the logic that that club is going to have to either de-affiliate with UX?
No, in the past
Or
we have
expel
allowed them.
members.
We have allowed them to have, we told them, look, your club is below 50%, but it's not something that we're actively going on auditing. The only time that we will see is just when they submit the AGM minutes, and that's the main goal here, is to making sure that whoever is voting for the club exec are mostly, UO-based students.
I think up to date, very much the process has been, let's work with the club and make it work. So do what is possible to.
Was this, I understand that this is obviously just a consultation phase. If the consultation is that something needs to be done about the number of non-students, but it's not raising a threshold, would you be open to some other means instead of this?
I think it's
So
definitely a discussion for the clubs committee to have, but I think Luke is always open to that.
I think ultimately this is the kind of discussion we can have once we have all the results and settled, and we can actually have a conversation about it. Also, is purely mentioning it.
Yeah, clubs committee can come back with the recommendation to the board anyway, so it was past clubs committee.
Wonderful. Anything further?
Yes. In terms of the SASH policies,
Yes,
were you involved in the consultation around the new SASH policies, and or were you invited to?
so sexual misconduct policy,
Yeah.
yes, I actually was invited to have a meeting with Michael and Kate, I think, was it Kate?
Yeah.
We had a discussion individually on the perspective of UX, in terms of how we can, when that expansion is go, how we can actually make two bodies come together. Say for instance, if there would be a case, how we can actually raise that formally through the university, providing support obviously out of scope, like other things like, things that are out of scope, how can we best provide support for them? Especially those students that are not in university activities, because at the moment, university activities does not include clubs. Now they include clubs. It does give the university a bit more power in terms of actually to do something, especially like things, for instance, I'm not like particular club pub crawl, like someone, unfortunately was, victim of a sexual misconduct, then something now can be done about it through this new policy. But in terms of support and then how we can get those information, is something that we talk about as well.
Any further questions from board directors? Billy, did you have a question?
Point 17, was that a club's EOI? What was the confusion around that?
There was just the club submitted something different to the initial EOI, so we had clarified that with the club, so there wasn't any issue with that. Yes.
Any further questions? There being none,
Yes, I use holding the chair. Yep. Okay, excellent. Well,
So did you have another question?
no, sorry, I thought
okay,
you were
but I passed the
handing
check
you
up
on to the
to
next
Oscar
point.
at 6:47.
So you pass the check. 6:47. Clubs committee chair report.
Yes, so meeting 5 has been and gone. Somewhat of a more eventful meeting. We had a degree of confusion a degree of controversy surrounding the Orges, the club that wanted to affiliate as Orges, so that's all been and gone. Certain members, yes.
Do you want to explain for the benefit of the meeting what Orges stands for?
Adelaide,
Australian
Australasian
Jewish.
Union
No,
of
Australian Union.
no Australasian.
Australasian Jewish Union of Jewish.
That's why it's really to clarify it. For the
So there was a club wanting to pass off as a branch. They wanted to start up a club as a faction of Orges.
Yeah.
We liaised with them because we don't obviously want externally controlled clubs, and they were willing to go along with that changes we recommended, and they were later approved by a circular
Yeah, so it's
resolution.
important for the SRC, because I know SRC were coming up motion, but now we have approved formally the Australian University, LA University of Jewish Students, something along that lines, association, something like that.
And then obviously there was a degree of confusion, which Oscar's already mentioned, largely due to
Yeah, and
staff
I think we've
shortages.
nearly exhausted our grants, which is great at this time.
Yep.
So it shows great engagement from clubs.
Aside from that, there isn't really much else to mention, aside from the fact that we're still waiting on those survey results to be processed, and once they are, I'm sure it'll be a point for the board to discuss. That's all.
And
I
also
really
note
have.
that I think we have recently also passed a major grant. There will be a huge fashion event, I think next month. So keep your eye out of it. I think it's a great event. It's great exposure for us as well.
Question about clubs and funding and the rebrand.
Yes.
How is that going? Because I've had a lot of people asking about if there'll be extra funding for clubs to make new banners and rebrand their individual clubs.
Nothing's been brought to my attention about this as of yet, so I couldn't honestly give you an answer.
So I think we have provided new stickers for them to stick over the old brand. That's the short-term solution, and the only thing that we are implementing, I think, in that sense, is just be like, if you're getting new banners, just make sure you have the new brand. There's no, I don't think we are obviously forcing people to change banners. We're just saying that if you have an old banner, just chuck a sticker.
Cool, thank you for clarifying.
If there's no other question, I will now proceed to the, yes, what do you want?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Does the board think that it's in any way a problem that Orges had accused the SRC of making up that the journalist Shireen that we were Kylie?
That's not for the board to comment on that.
Well,
It is though, it's
No, that's not for the board to comment on that.
because Orges lied, saying
No,
where
that's
the
not for the
came
board,
from.
that's not for the
That
board.
killed a
Again, that's
journalist.
not for the board to comment on that.
is it not for the board to comment on?
The board will
this
not comment
club
on that.
wants to exist on.
It's not the role of the board to comment on that.
Because it wants to exist on campus.
Again,
Can
I
you
think I've
explain
addressed,
why?
I think I've addressed that. The board, will not. It's,
Who is?
it's a question for the SRC. It's not a question for the board.
No, it's not a question for the SRC. They don't affiliate religious.
But the board are not. UX is not affiliated or just either.
Yeah, but you're in discussions about it. Clubs committees in discussions about it, so that's why it's been.
Measures were taken so that we weren't funding
It's
advanced
just that
colleges.
clubs committee has said that they wanted LAU to see Jewish Students Association. That was it.
And the only change is the name, is the acronym. It's still Orges, but they've said Allied University instead of Australian
But
University.
it's,
No.
it's
But they still have exactly the same function and funding and exterior control.
I don't think this is an
I don't think
appropriate.
that's at
You
all.
can
what-
write your question in an email to Luke.
Exactly.
That sounds like something that's really complicated. I don't think it's something that we can address here today.
So just in summary, that was the only problem we had with this group was essentially structural.
No, that's not a comment that we're making. I'm just saying that your question is too complicated. You gotta put that in an email. Then we can look at how we can comment on that.
I don't think it's too complicated, but carry on.
Now, next item, Student Media Independent Committee report. Now, the Student Media Independent Committee, which convened at the request of the UX board, and Isaac can talk about the finding on that. So I will let Isaac to talk about, as the convener of the independent committee, to talk through what has happened. The board basically has passed a resolution as per the rules to convene an independent committee to investigate a recent alleged breach of a USM director obligation. So all yours, Isaac.
Sure. So, as you all know, we formed a independent committee to determine whether or not Habiba had breached her duties as a on-D editor. The tribunal spoke for about an hour and a half, and it consisted of 3 members. Habiba came to that meeting and spoke to us for, I don't know, 20, 25 minutes. We asked Habiba a number of questions, and after robust discussion, we determined that Habiba had in fact breached her duties by breaching clause 1.2.2 of the Constitution, which establishes that the body exists primarily to further the welfare of students and members. Any questions?
So I would so you are a support person of Habiba. So when I say support person, you're here to provide emotional support and not to provide an opinion on behalf of Habiba. So I just want to make that clear. Before we proceed to attendees, any question, concerns from the board on this matter? So other meeting attendees.
Attendees.
Sorry,
yeah.
that's why I'm clarifying that. There's no questions, concerns from the board. Habiba, would you like to have a right to reply on the
Yeah,
matter?
absolutely. First of all, I think as Stasi, as my support person, should be able to help me speak on this matter because essentially he's here for emotional support, but that means to help me make my case. I think he should be able to express his thoughts and opinions. First
No,
of
you're
all,
unable to.
to
No.
completely silence him is to render him as my support person.
I have to
So
make a
what's the
ruling
point?
on that. Habiba, can you please make your case?
It's so ridiculous. I completely reject that I've broken clause 1.22 to further the welfare of students and members. I wrote an article, and this article was a political opinion piece, and this is the political opinion piece of OND. It is the opinion of multiple staff, multiple students at the university, the Greater Middle East, and any anti-Zionist activists. This article was discussed on the SRC meeting because Henry Southcott put a motion that it's hate speech, whatnot. A few Orges supporters and now members, I guess, came to that meeting, and one of them was Gracie, in which she came and claimed that my article had made campus an unsafe space for her. I think this is absolutely laughable, and I did laugh at her at the SRC meeting because, first of all, her politics of supporting a murderous, genocidal government that ethnically cleanses people like me, her politics was challenged in my article, and yet that has made it an unsafe space for her. Myself, multiple students on campus, multiple sites at campus, the Greater Middle East, all anti-Zionists do not recognize Israel as a Jewish state. They recognize Israel as an occupation. and we have a right to express our opinion as on-D editors. And this was clarified that it has nothing got to do with Judaism. Anti-Zionism is different from anti-Judaism. So for me, it was absolutely funny that because her politics and her stance was challenged, that she's come and claimed that I've made campus an unsafe space for her. What makes campus is an unsafe space is her politics is ignoring the plight of Palestinians, who are the most oppressed group of people on the earth, completely dismissing that because Orges, who are a proud and openly proclaimed Zionist advocacy group, wanted to come on campus. They exploited my article as an excuse. Gracie herself, who her anxiety is self-invoked, because who invited her to come and comment hundreds of comments on the article and yet claim that she's got anxiety from it. That's absolute bullshit. It's absolutely disingenuous for her to do that. She's liking comments. Her and Jonathan and other Orges affiliates, supporters, members are liking comments that are death threats to Undi, that are death threats to me. Orges uploaded a photo of me and then deleted it because they realized that was a bad mistake. They're liking extremely Islamophobic and racist comments. They're liking comments that are like, oh, Habiba should be deported, she has no place in Australia, blah, 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 blah. All of this is just a political fight against Palestine, against the Free Palestine movement.
Habiba, I have to
It
stop
is
you there.
absolutely nothing got to do with making...
Habiba, I have to stop you there. The board is not here to decide on any of those matters. If you can please strictly speak on what the committee has decided,
Yeah,
which is talking about your conduct, So I just have to make sure you're not out of
students, I
order.
threatened the welfare of students. No,
Yes.
I didn't. In fact, on the express of political opinion, some group of people's, their political opinion was challenged, not their welfare. It was my welfare that was challenged. It was my life that was challenged. That is it. So I reject that. I reject the board, the YouX,
The
whatever,
independent
independent
committee, yes.
committee's decision completely. That is not true. And it's hilarious to me that one member on the independent committee is a Zionist himself. That is the biggest conflict of interest for him to decide
I mean,
on
I
that.
think you can accuse that, but I think the committee itself has determined
And the
on your
UX cannot
conduct.
afford to have another scandal. You've already got mass reputation ruined from the rebrand. There's like a few weeks left of the semester. Removing me will do nothing except for make you look bad.
No one has moved a motion to remove me yet.
I'm making my point, Isaac. This is my time to speak. And so no, Gracie, Jonathan, who want to establish Orges on campus, who are proudly this group of people, days after the Gaza bombing went and celebrated it, who celebrated the Death to Arab holiday, who are openly racist, openly Islamophobic, they want to bring that onto campus, but because my article challenged their politics and what they stand for, they've come and made these bogus claims and defamation and misrepresentation of who I am, who my editorial team is, what Undi is all about.
Isaac.
Before, just while you're on the topic of defamation, do you have any evidence of any of these claims about Gracie that you're making? That she's Islamophobic, that she's liking comments that are death threats?
Yeah, you can go on the Facebook comment page. It's right there, and also it's unconstitutional because I broke no law, so you can't remove me.
So are you? Do you have
It's
any
literally
proof of that
unconstitutional.
to submit?
Do you want me to submit it right now? Like I can open up the Facebook page, or actually, yeah. Do you want me to submit the comments that she's liked? It's
Well,
there
if-
right now. You
if
can
they-
bring it up.
If it's a
Gracie and Jonathan.
if it's a death threat towards you, sure.
That's something for the police to
Yeah.
determine. It's not the book, like UX board here is not to determine any of those matter.
If UX has a duty of
We
care to
have-
students, I'm also a student here.
Yes, we are talking about your conduct as an AUSN director. Again, if you can please bring that back. And if you have an issue with what the
What
determination
was my
of the
conduct?
committee-
I went to the SRC meeting, I defended myself. My conduct was raised at the independent committee meeting, the tribunal, that my conduct at the SRC was bad. And I'm just explaining how it went down. It was not bad. I'm not breaking any rules as editor.
Any other, so
Death
directors,
to Undi, there's literally a hashtag, death to Undi, and she liked it.
again, it's not for the
Her friend
directors.
liked
It's not,
My friend liked it.
it's not, again, this is not the.
She likes other comments, Isaac.
Habiba, if you do this one more time, I have to call you out of
What am I
order.
doing? I'm just answering
I have
the
to call you out
questions.
of order, so please focus on what we're discussing here. UX is not here to determine any death threats. UX does not support that, clearly. but we're here to talk about the conduct of you as a USM director. So please
So
focus on
clarify
that.
for me, what was my conduct that apparently breached student welfare?
Hazat, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. That was your conduct in the meeting. It was your reiteration of death to Israel. It was the comment in your, I believe it was your second article, Glory to the Intifada. And it was when you were asked to be very careful about the wording of what you were saying, because some people might take it literally. You said, and I mean it, death to Israel.
Yes, death to Israel, which it was even clarified in Australian Jewish Student News that death to Israel meant death to the genocide, death to the apartheid, and the war criminal IDF. So yes, death to that, and I stand by that, and RD stands by that. There's nothing that does not in any way, in any capacity, threaten student welfare on campus.
Again, we're
So-
now here talking about AUSM directors. We don't have any power over any other students.
I'm so confused.
So
I
again,
thought
we
you're
need
telling
to
me what
focus on that.
conduct has made me apparently breach student welfare, and I've clarified it and I've answered it, and you're saying we're not talking about that. That doesn't
No,
make
I'm
sense
saying
to me,
that if you
Oscar.
can please focus on, like, we're not here to talk about all the death threats and anything else. I'm sorry for those things that happen to you. UX does not stand for that. But for this particular agenda item, we are here to talk about your conduct as an AUSM director. UX doesn't have any power over any people that are alleging right now unless they are part of the organization. I'm happy to look into that. I do not stand for that. I do not think any directors here stand for that. But if we can please focus on the particular matter we're discussing right now, that'd be great. Do you have
What,
any-
that I put student welfare in danger?
Yes, Daniel.
I don't get it.
Thank you, Oscar. This is the UX. I think, yeah, as member of the U community in the uni, I believe that your comments actually are racist. Are even the essay prior call it as what it is. It's anti-Semitism. It's clear anti-Semitism. And I understand that you have free speech, and I actually support your free speech 100%. And I stand for human rights 100%. But I believe that free speech definitely shouldn't include hate, shouldn't include attacking a nation. A state, Israel is not an idea, Israel is an actual state with 9 million people. So saying death to a state, it's a call for war. It's literally a call for war, and I think
No, it's not a call for war.
should
Can we
call
please
for-
just
Universities should always call for peace, should always advocate human rights and ideas that would put all of us together and not split us, including the students in the university. So I really believe that any idea that could seed hate toward any group in the university is definitely affecting the welfare of students. And I also
How is your welfare on campus
Habiba,
threatened
Habiba,
when
can
I'm
you
calling
please-
out a
Habiba,
murderous government?
Habiba, can you please
Habiba.
let Daniel finish?
many of the youth students in the uni, we hold Israeli passport, or we might, or our families
Shame.
might hold it, and we are proud of our nation, as any other person should be or can be proud of that, and nobody should ever claim death for the nation. I believe that's definitely hate speech, and free speech is not could never be excused to attack any nation or any community.
Well, this has been addressed multiple times that it's not an attack on a nation or a group of people. It is to a government, it is to a system, it is to the state that is committing active, ongoing
So it is to the
genocide
state.
and ethnic cleansing and apartheid. So death to that is calling for the downfall and abolishment of that system that has killed millions of Palestinians, that has displaced millions of Palestinians, that has created war in Syria, that has bombed Syria. So yeah, if you're so anti-racist, in fact, you would also be opposing Israel, the government, and their IDF, and who have committed multiple war crimes, which has been recognized by the United Nations, which has been recognized by the Geneva Conventions. This is not my opinion. So absolutely not. It does not put your welfare. Your welfare as a Jewish student is not threatened. I am the one that has been protesting against Nazi politics, against Nazi symbols on campus. Isaac Trumbull is the one that is protesting against actioning against that.
Can we please not refer to?
When have I done that?
Can we please not make
Habiba.
allegations that are?
It's not an accusation, it's the truth.
Habiba,
what you
I
do,
think we need to stay relevant.
what you have
here.
been
I've been
doing.
an anti-fascist in my politics, in my actions, in my
Habiba,
articles, and it's
can we
fascism that
please
has threatened
stay
your
on
students and
topic?
multiple other groups of
Habiba,
students
what
on
you have
campus.
done consistently in this meeting is make unsubstantiated claims about at least 5 different people, now including me. Can you please just focus on what we're actually talking about and stuff that you have genuine ability to comment on?
I've had genuine ability to comment all of that, and every right and everything I've said is correct, Isaac, okay? I have already
seen no
addressed it. I have not put
To suggest
students'
that half
welfare
of what you
in-
have said is true.
on threat. Ondi has a right to express their political opinions. This
Yes,
political
exactly.
opinion threatens a ideology. It challenges a government and the actions of that government. It in no way threatens students. These group of students who are the only loud and vocal ones who are part of a group who are actually racist, who are actually applauding Israeli genocide, who they even refuse to condemn or recognize war crimes that the United Nations have recognized, that Amnesty International has recognized. So it is completely disingenuous for these group of loudmouth students who claim to feel threatened, but only they just want to advance their agenda on campus. That's not true. Students and staff have actually commented to Ondi, reached out to Ondi saying, we applaud your article. Thank you for speaking about an issue that's very important to speak out about. The plight of Palestinians should not be dismissed just because a few Zionists don't like that their politics was challenged.
Grace?
Grace. We hear what you're saying.
Okay.
You are being heard. This is the time for you to share your opinions. However, I think that when you speak over people who are claiming, like yourself, that your welfare is being impacted, you're then also being detrimental to other students' welfare.
By
And that
speaking
is-
over them?
Yes, by speaking over them. So when you speak, the things that you're saying hurt other people. Yeah?
Okay.
Like they're hurting you when they post things or like things, etc. That in itself, we understand, we hear you. But what we're talking about and what we're discussing now
Yes.
is only specifically to do with the conduct in the meeting.
Yeah.
Not a debate about whether what was in the article was good or bad or for or against or detrimental or not.
Okay. Well, in that case, my conduct in the SRC meeting broke no laws, did nothing. It is actually one of the, as pre-commented, one of the politest debates that have ever happened on the SRC this year. The SRC meeting debates happen all the time. People come and insult each other's political thoughts all the time. So I don't know why we're discussing this and wasting everyone's time.
Isaac? No, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to.
Daniel?
We are free to discuss politics, and I think actually that's a very good activity and productive activity to discuss politics and discuss ideas. But calling it death for a country, it's a country, it's an actual state.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's not gonna be a productive
Habiba,
political
please.
discussion. It's just hate speech, and it should be called as it is. I agree with the South Australian Premier. It's anti-Semitism, and the uni should stand for your rights and for the rights of every single student.
So when I discuss this,
Habiba,
I'm told it's irrelevant to whether
can you
US
please
is talking
stop and
about, but
ask
he's
you-
gone on a
Can I
tangent.
please?
Habiba, can you please just let other people talk?
Merlin, do you have a comment?
Israel is not a country.
Can I?
Yeah, the problem is that, as also Chris has mentioned, that the problem is that when you comment and you ask for did have an impact on students, and a lot of Jewish students did feel offended by your article, including your comments in the SRC meeting. I can clearly see and make a claim that the Jewish student there, the girl who talked to you there, it's not a racist. I don't think she's a racist, and she also mentioned that her past experience working in no matter Palestine or Israel, to look after the homeless kids. I do think that it is inappropriate for you to claim her as a racist, because whatever she said in the meeting does not make her racist, as Daniel should also know about it, right? And but the comment that you said over her and the comment that you given to her. I do consider it a type of bully to the students who have attended the SRC meeting, and I think that it is inappropriate to have bully or attack to a particular group or a group of students who have a certain identity, right? The Israeli identity. And I do think that as Andy did, we do respect your political views and your freedom of speech, but it's super important that we should also respect other people, no matter what they believe and their identity as well.
I think that
Can I, Billy, you have a comment?
I was going to say, I mean, I've been here sort of not on the sidelines, but watching all of this. And the whole time, there has been a genuine lack of, we all want peace. Like, I think, fuck the Israeli government. Netanyahu's not great. Settlements are pretty evil. Like, I think we can criticize the Israeli government, we criticize any government. But the debate which has happened has been it's been one radical side versus another radical side with no room for nuance. And I think in this whole debate, this sort of has fired up people on both sides, which has led to, coming to campus. Like that SRC meeting was pretty horrendous. I fucking hated the SRC meeting. I felt horrible after that SRC meeting. It's not the way that we should conduct ourselves. We should conduct ourselves with respect. I'm not commenting, on any of this stuff, but I think this whole debate has been very unproductive. And I think what we'll strive for is peace. And, criticisms of Israel aside, a lot of people on campus do support Israel. And it's just and thoughts on Israel aside, criticizing someone's culture, criticizing someone's heritage or a perceived attack of heritage. I'm not saying that you're attacking Jewish people, but a lot of people do identify with Israel. And I think attacking the culture, attacking Israel as a state can be perceived as an attack on the people.
Bill, you mentioned that there's it's been very much a one radical side versus the other radical side. Do we have actual examples of the other radical side opposing Habiba in a racist?
I think David Adler, I think him going on and calling for all of our money, all of the student union's money to be cut, for these comments, calling for Unbe to be totally defunded, calling for Habiba's death, calling for this, those are not okay things to do. There have been some on the other side of things. Habiba told me about the death threats she received. None of that's okay. There's no, people feel so strongly about this. There's no.
But I mean, in a public forum. So I suppose David Adler's comments were probably quite public then.
Yeah, go on Facebook, go on sort of the media store.
Just for clarity, Billy. So David Adler, he called for Undi's funding to be pulled.
Yes,
on
the whole report.
Okay. He called for funding.
He called for the
UX.
union's UX's money to be pulled.
Okay. I don't think that is a incredibly disturbing thing from one side of the aisle. I think that's a simple opinion.
Habiba, if you can please
I
allow.
think that when you've got one side calling death to Israel, glory to the Intifada, compared to Billy, just let me finish. As opposed to, I think that organisation should lose some funding. I don't think that those are two extreme points of view going at each other. I think there's one clearly extreme view and one maybe, I don't really like that.
Yeah, no, and I agree. That wasn't the best example. Habiba receiving death threats is the other radical side.
And of course, if that is true, then that is not acceptable behaviour. But
just go on the Facebook comments section. Apart from my
You're out of order. I will give you a first formal warning. Can you please?
The millionth time, stop speaking when other people are speaking. We have all listened to you. Now listen to other people, please. Thank you. In terms of anyone speaking to Habiba and threatening death to Habiba, I certainly haven't seen that. If it's been private, then we haven't seen that. And on top of that, it's not actually the job of the UX board or the committee to, so I can't read from all the way over there, to, can I just keep speaking?
So you seem to see it. Unbelievable.
No, I think what Isaac's trying to say is we are addressing your conduct
It's
because
not
you're
our
a
job
subject
to
of UX.
police everyone's conduct. We are currently looking at yours because you aren't on the editor and these other people are not.
Yes, we can.
If they were, we would also be reviewing their conduct.
If obviously if they're part of UX,
That's
but if
exactly
they're not
what I
part of
was
UX, but they're a student of the University of Adelaide, you can refer them to the university. There's support system available there, which I encourage them to encourage you to use in this case. And I'm sorry again, as I said, that you have received that threat. It's not something UX supports certainly, but there is an appropriate channel to do that. UX have no power over external groups, and I know that there's someone in the Zoom who have raised their hand. Does anyone in Zoom want to speak? If there's none,
I'd like to address
Alyssa?
Daniel and
Alyssa.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just in the car and I'm driving back from Canberra, so I haven't been able to hear the meeting super well. But thank you so much for having me here today. My name's Alyssa, I'm Vice President of the Conservation Union of Jewish Students. I just want to address a couple of things that were mentioned. Obviously, and again, I haven't been able to hear the students so well, the audio is not great. I'm not super familiar with the Constitution. I'm not super familiar with the processes at UX, so I'm not going to comment on that and any of that. I'm going to leave that for you guys to out of that. But from our perspective, when in that SRC meeting, when Jewish students expressed their own personal views, their own connection, and the Jewish community isn't a monolith. That we have Jews who fall all across the political spectrum, and everyone connects differently with Israel. Some people criticize Israel, some people refuse to criticize Israel. We're not a monolith. I can speak for myself. I criticize the Israeli government. I speak about the Israeli government every day. My family Shabbat dinners on a Friday night. Our Friday night dinner, one of the religious festivals on our Sabbath. I criticize Israel. My whole family sits there and criticizes Israel, but we all call ourselves proud Zionists. And that's because we believe in the right to a Jewish state in the land of Israel. But that does not mean, and it's not mutually exclusive, to be a Zionist and to not criticize certain actions of the Israeli government. And I want to make that really clear. And secondly, what's really hurtful to Jewish students, and I've had a lot of chat with students at the University of Adelaide, is non-Jewish people in that SRC meeting and in Facebook comments and other things that have been made afterwards, which I know we're not going into now, is non-Jewish people telling what is and isn't anti-Semitism, what is and isn't their experience, and speaking over them. In that meeting, a Jewish student said she lived in Israel for 2 years, and there were members of the SRC who laughed and said shame and do. That is not a political opinion. That is obviously going to make someone uncomfortable the same way if anyone else said they lived in another country or they were born in another country and people in the room said they were shame. That's not a productive environment, and I completely agree. And I think it was Billy, and I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Billy who said before that this hasn't been a nuanced conversation, and I think there definitely is space for nuanced conversation about what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and I'm fully in support of creating spaces to have nuanced conversations, but to laugh when Jewish students are saying they're feeling uncomfortable, to say glory to the Intifada when Australian Jews were murdered in bus bombings to the Intifada is not productive, and it genuinely makes Jewish students at your university feel unsafe and scared and not feeling like they're able to express their identity in whatever form that manifests on campus. So that's really, I'm happy to take any questions. If you have any questions about orders and the work we do, how we operate on other campuses or anything like that, I'm really happy to ask any questions. But that's all I really wanted to touch on today. Thank you so much for having me.
Just to note as well, I note there has been a comment on D to say the committee has argued the article has breached a goal to further welfare of students and members. Again, I've clarified in a lot of times, and for the benefit of D as well, we've said that the committee has found that what was breached is because of the conduct after the article was published. I think we've made it abundantly clear from the independent committee, and I'm disappointed that was the case that was shown in D. Isaac?
It's incredibly indicative of a pattern of behaviour that while Alyssa is speaking about what has made her and other Jewish students that have spoken to her feel uncomfortable, talking about saying shame while people have been trying to express what makes it uncomfortable. well, makes them uncomfortable. Habiba is sitting there doing the exact same thing over and over again. I think that it's quite concerning that there's clearly no remorse for the way that she has acted in that SRC meeting, which is the basis of the tribunal's finding. You've seen it again firsthand.
Is there any other comments?
I think furthermore, there's no attempt to approach a nuanced solution to this kind of issue.
Sally is no longer my support person. He's an observer. I think he should be able to comment.
No, he's your support
He's-
person.
No,
You
he's
have
not.
indicated that he's your support
I know him
person.
as my support
He has
person.
indicated to me, you have indicated to me that he is your support person.
Well, I'm indicating now that he's not.
No,
He's an
you
observer.
can't just do that. So
It's
again,
so funny that everyone else is allowed to
if-
talk except for my support
Habiba,
person.
can you please stop interjecting? If not, I will have to eject you from the meeting room. If there's no other comments from the board.
I'd like to
I think-
address
Oh,
Daniel and Mervyn for what they said.
One last comment.
Daniel, you act like you are the spokesperson for the entire Jewish population, whereas there are multiple, and I can name hundreds of Jewish organizations and activists who are anti-Israel, who do not recognize criticizing Israel as anti-Semitism, who themselves have adopted the revolutionary slogan, "Death to Israel," in their own meetings, in their own work, in their own whatever they do. Do not act like you are the spokesperson for the entire Jewish population, because that is anti-Semitism.
Daniel, can you provide a reply on that?
You want to limit the discussion to an oppressor, and the situation is much more complex than that. I believe on the rights of the Palestinian people, but I also believe on the rights of the Israeli people. And the only way we can deliver peace for Palestinian people and Israeli people is by not calling death of any of them. And everyone would agree with me, at least those who have.
I refuse to entertain this any longer. I've already addressed what death to Israel means.
Alyssa Foster, last comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to address the point about representing the Jewish people. Again, as I said before, Jews aren't monoliths. We're not one big group that all speaks the same. But there are bodies in Australia who I encourage anyone who wants to understand Jewish community and Jewish community opinion to reach out to. For example, our organisation, we are democratically elected by Jewish students across Australia and New Zealand. We actively work with all our organisations and Jewish students around the country to understand what they think about Israel, what they think about Zionism, what Zionism means to me. And that doesn't mean I can speak on behalf of all of that, but there are organisations like the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, which represents Jews around Australia, who are democratically elected and have a representative voice. And I encourage anyone who wants to learn about the Jewish community to actually learn about the diversity within the Jewish community and the diversity of Zionism north, number one. And the second point I just wanted to make as well is, like, with this whole conversation and the terms death to Israel, I understand the conflict, you may think that you mean death to the occupation, fine. You may think that when you say death to Israel, that means you condemn the Israeli government's action. But someone who does not understand the conflict will read death to Israel, will read war into the Intifada, they will Google what the Intifada means, and they can see that it was bus bombing in
That's not what the Intifada was. The Intifada is not
Habiba, please.
What are misrepresentations?
Habiba, please.
If people are lying, then I have a right to
Habiba,
address the lie.
please, let her finish.
I understand what you were saying. I do. I understand what you were saying. But to someone who does not understand the conflict, if they Google to the Intifada and they Google what the Intifada was, there were Israeli Jews who were burned in the Intifada. I know families of people who lost someone in Buffalo using nightclubs in Tel Aviv. And I think that's what's really hurtful is that these words, they're not political opinion. And I understand where you're coming from with it, but it's not that it doesn't encourage people to understand and doesn't encourage people to read. And that's really what I wanted to say about that. I really encourage everyone to engage with the Jewish community if you want to understand where Jews are coming from, don't speak over us.
Thank you, Alyssa. And as I said, that's the last comment from you, Habiba. There's no comment from anyone else in the boardroom or in Zoom. I think it is, considering everything, I support the Independence Committee's finding. I hereby move a resolution that reads that the board accepts the Independent Committee's determination that Habiba Jacouri breached an AUSN Director obligation and hereby removes Habiba Jacouri as an AUSN Director, Can I have a second for that resolution?
Oh, did you move it?
Yes.
Oh, then I'll second.
Seconded by Isaac. Does anyone else wish to have a further debate on that? Yes, Grace.
Yes. I think that removing a director at this point in time is not beneficial. I think that Habiba has done other good work in terms of being an editor, in terms of being a part of Ondi's team, and Ondi as a team have done well this year. I think that there are other avenues that we can take to penalise the breach of directors as of the student media duties, and I would encourage the board to think about that before voting, e.g. honorarium, etc.
Well, perhaps if this motion fails, we can move another motion.
All right, is there any dissent to that resolution? Those.
Clarify question. Do I need to record an abstention or is it already?
No, well, I don't think.
You normally need to leave the room if you have a conflict of interest.
So, do you even count as? It doesn't
Even abstain doesn't count, but it's best that you leave the room, so just leave the room for a while. A dissent has been raised from Grace. Those in favour? Those against? Those abstaining? The motion carried.
Please note my dissent.
I am extremely proud to have written that article, and this will not stop me. Doesn't matter that the last 4 weeks I'm removed as director. I will continue to always fight for Palestine and oppose Israel, the genocidal, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, disgusting, illegitimate state that you represent and you love, Isaac.
I don't represent Israel.
You do. You proudly have the Israeli flag on your social media.
No, I don't.
That's
actually.
representation.
I have the Australian flag and the Union Jack on my profile.
Sure. So
Um,
you must
Isaac,
have removed
can
it
you just-
very
can
recently.
you just-
It's not relevant right now anyway.
Luke, I would read a statement following this. As an elected representative, Habiba is subjected to the same organizational value as all others representatives and employees of YouX. The independent committee respects and supports the editorial independence of the editors and does not seek to censor or influence the publication in any way. The findings of the committee are again in relation to the continued and sustained behavior of the editor in question and the manner in which she has chosen to push a point of view in the public domain. YouX has a mandate to support all students equally and will never condone actions which could be perceived as discriminatory against any individuals or a group of students. We provide critical support and services to over 25,000 students at the University of LA, which include students of many varied ethnicity, religions, and identities. We understand that the difference of opinion will always exist amongst individuals and groups at a university size. We value diversity but advocate for respectful and constructive debate. And the decision on this matter, the decision of the board is final and concludes all actions and investigations on this matter. So thank you everyone for attending and voicing your concerns. But now I consider that the matter closed. And thank you for your work, Isaac, on the independent committee. It must have been quite difficult for you to convene that. Moving on. Your stuff, Isaac, pronouns.
Yes. I mean, the recommendation is right there. All YouX funded events or activities cannot exclude individuals based on their refusal to disclose their gender identifying pronouns, nor requires an individual to provide
Transfer. What? That's
for any
fresh.
reason except on a voluntary basis. All individuals have the right to interact with YouX without disclosing the aforementioned information. So, it's fairly self-explanatory. No one is prohibited from providing pronouns if they so wish. It is just a note that if someone does not wish to, they are not required to, which does not infringe on anyone's rights. It just gives people individual choice about how they wish to identify themselves and whether or not they want to have any kind of pronouns next to their name or not.
Any questions, concerns?
And I don't think I need to go into it that deeply, but sure.
Felix.
I have a few questions. First off, with this recommendation, is this an amendment to a policy or is this what
No, this is
exactly
just a
is
stance
this?
for the board to take. So
So
that
it's
people
not,
can.
it's not in any way.
So it's not actually binding if it's not, like, what does this apply to?
It just applies to all our events, activities, so that we don't. I guess this is what saying that not forcing people to disclose their pronouns.
So it's not like, you know, so say all of our media, you know, say on D or student radio or clubs and everything, there's an official set of rules or something. We don't have an official set of rules for how we would run registration for an event or anything like that. So it's just a, I guess, directive to how we as an organisation will interact with the public.
So on a Google form, they can't make pronouns a little red square. That's
Yeah, not compulsory.
For example, so you can include a on a Google form, for example, a box for pronouns. It can't be a one with an asterisk like it's required. That's simply all of it. Practically, that is, as far as I envision, the extent of what this will do.
Is there anyone who currently has a little asterisk on their Google Forms? Like, is there a reason that this is being moved?
Yes, there was one recently.
Yeah.
Any questions?
That's probably
concerns?
the main reason.
Again, Habiba, I'm not inviting you to speak. Can you please refrain those comments, say something else, ask you to speak?
Now, I could get this wrong because I know there was a few variations of the agenda, some of which I'll raise later, but as I understand it, the actual recommendation was not tabled until about an hour before the meeting, is that correct, in this version? Is there a reason why that wasn't?
Yeah, I was collating my agenda at that point of time, and I was mainly focusing on doing the report, which I missed out on the initial draft.
The report, you know, making sure that was all complete and everything did take precedence over this, but you know.
Given that I mean, we've got a lot to discuss tonight, and we've got in-camera items as well. I'm going to make the same comment, I say en bloc for a lot of the items, but anything that's not actually directly urgent, considering there are all these sudden things that we put on the agenda, is it not prudent to defer this to the following meeting, or even calling a special meeting, or even putting this through circular resolution or something, rather than sort of jumping it on people now? Because I haven't really had time to digest what this might mean, if there are any potential ramifications that perhaps are unintended, considering that we got basically an hour's notice of this. And this would bind all.
I think as directors, we're all in the capacity to quickly analyse this kind of situation. It's a fairly straightforward idea. We're just being as non-discriminatory as possible, offering everyone as much freedom as possible. I think it's pretty straightforward.
I agree with you, Felix, if it was some kind of drastic change to a policy or a rule, but it's the entire content of the motion is there in 4 lines. I don't think that it puts any board director in a huge imposition.
All right. The recommendation reads that all YouX funding events or activities cannot include individuals based on their refusal to disclose their gender identifying pronouns, nor require an individual to provide them for any reason except on a voluntary basis. All individuals have the right to interact with YouX without disclosing the aforementioned information. Moved by Isaac. Can I have a seconder for that resolution? Seconded by Luke. Is there any dissent? It's none. I declare that carried. So this is just purely administrative, I think, in that sense. We just need to...
Sorry to interrupt. Just want to clarify that motion carried.
Yes.
Yeah, and just a question for Isaac.
Yeah.
Was that, from a student point of view, was that raised as a concern by students, or was this something that's coming from your own initiative?
It was a collaboration with a few people who spoke to me about it, yes. One.
Okay, and have you engaged with any queer students around this topic?
Given that the motion doesn't put any imposition on anyone, I didn't feel the need, because the only people this affects is individuals who choose not to put any pronouns into anything. Any student who wishes to identify with their pronouns is still perfectly entitled to do so.
Okay, thank you for your response.
You're welcome.
On the editor, so we have noted that there's a vacancy in our new radio director next year, so it'd be good for us to establish an appointment process so that we have on the radio directors from 1st of December, because we have received no nominations. So this is just a standard procedure, because we don't have a procedure at the moment in our rules to do what to do about a vacancy, but it's just purely administrative, I think, in that sense. Yes, please.
From my understanding of the rules, and as you say, there's no sort of precedent for this. I'm not aware of there being an uncontested election for either student media group, at least in my time at university. Does the board actually have the power to appoint for, in effect, a future term?
Yeah, I mean, the board can decide. I mean, at the moment, it's like elections. The board concur, like, say, for instance, the clubs committee elections, and the board has set a procedure about how they want to go about clubs committee elections, which we did in policies, and the board approves the report of the RO. So this will be something similar in that sense.
And would this not be prudent, considering that this will take effect from 1st of December, which is actually relatively quite a while away, to wait until the next ordinary meeting when the incoming student media
Death to
chair
Israel.
would have been selected, and for the outgoing student media chair and the incoming student media chair to collaboratively establish this process?
I think it is important that we make sure that this is done before the 1st of December, because induction and everything happens before that.
There's a board meeting in October, correct?
Yeah.
And that, well, there's a good chance that that'll be after the.
Yeah, that's where the election probably is going to be happening, I think.
Yeah, so would it not be best if we wait until the new student media chair has been selected and then get them to collaboratively work on this? Because it'll be the new student media chair has to work with them. And there's new student media chair who has
Well, I mean,
to
imagine that whichever the board directors is interested in this matter, they can discuss with Oliver Douglas, which is student media chair. I think that I would envision it be one of the directors moving on next year, or the new directors, and I think Oliver Douglas would probably be open to that. Obviously, the board has the final say in this. We don't need to, obviously, I mean, if you are convinced that the process will not be followed fully, then we can look into that.
My understanding of the rules is that it isn't up to the board to decide, it's up to the student media committee.
That's not correct.
No, because we have not, in this case, there's a vacancy, and a complete vacancy, so it's up to the board technically.
Okay, it's complete, okay.
Yeah, it's a complete vacancy, this is 0, because initially if there's 1, then that's different, like then they can appoint another person, I think, through the committee level, if I'm not wrong.
Just on wording, I just wanted to make sure, and I'm not sure what wording to offer, but I just want to make absolutely sure that this does not empower the student media chair to unilaterally appoint people, because it currently just says,
a process.
well, what if they establish a process which is them picking it, and we've just delegated them the power?
How would you amend it?
Well, I'm just looking at this from a legal perspective. To be recommended to the board.
Yeah.
Just attached to the recommended.
Okay.
That's fair enough.
The
How about
recommended.
one of my team on that, in that process?
Yeah, so they would, I mean, that's what we did on, a couple of years ago when there was on the Editor vacancy. So I think they engaged with the media team to work on an appointment process, Gary, is that right? And I think, I remember I was involved in that as well. That there were appointments and recommendations that the student media committee look through it and stuff like that, and they come with a recommendation.
Yes, that was an interesting year where the board deviated from the existing rules, where the rules are quite clear that the colleagues, if they wish to recommend an editor, student media chair will rubber stamp that. Pretty clear, and yet they didn't do that. But it is a different circumstance.
Okay.
So long as we've got that wording.
The recommendation reads that the board actions the student media committee chair to establish a process for
recommend to the
appointment
board, maybe? Or no,
of the editors, the directors 2023, comma, to be recommended to the board. Okay, just make that amendment. Not sure how long has that is.
I think, is he taking a marker?
If you have, if everyone is happy with that,
He took a marker.
can I have a mover for the resolution then? For the amended resolution?
What is the actual resolution?
If
Sure.
To be recommended.
To be recommended to the board, yeah.
Moved by Grace, can I have a second for that resolution, seconded by John, is there any dissent? Having none, I declare that carried. So I think this one we need to wait for Isaac, but I think Isaac just wanted to have an addition of the definition of anti-Semitism formally being put into the
Haven't we already adopted this?
policy. Yeah, we have adopted this, but it's not in the policy.
Okay.
Just wait for Isaac as well.
It's just a question to you, Oscar, because you actually put a bit around for this. Do you recall this to be the wording or the similar wording that was adopted by the board?
It was the wording, so it was the definition of IHRA. Isaac,
Yes. Oh, what happened?
yours.
Did the motion pass?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Pretty, again, in light of recent events, I just thought it would be, prudent. Oh, okay, I'm changing.
So Isaac takes the chair at 7:45. 7:41, sorry.
I thought it would just be prudent to, add, the working definition of the, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, which the board has already accepted, I believe, in 2019 or 20, into, the, Constitution. No, what's it? What did I put it into? Was it
To the
into the roles and responsibilities of board president and executive. So just to add that formally in so it's recognised.
What is the difference? Like, I understand that you put it in there, but it says it's non-legally binding working definition. What's the benefit to clarity of us adding that to something that's already the board stance?
Just to formally recognise.
For the black version of the law.
I think that particularly at the present time with various external organisations casting doubt and judgment on YouX and our position on anti-Semitism, I think that it's important to formally recognise what our position is and place that in a written set of our rules. That is the purpose of the motion. Given that it's already been adopted by the board, I just think it's prudent to formally recognise it in a written document. Oscar, I know that Alyssa Foster has raised her hand.
Alyssa, would you like to speak on the matter?
Yeah, I do have to run in a couple of minutes, so I'll just briefly speak about it. I think I agree with what was said. The IRA definition, why it's really crucial, and I think this time is, I agree, is a really important time, is because it's the recognition that it's a definition that's recognised by majority of Jewish community organisations, and including all the representative bodies in Australia, but also international representative bodies from Jewry, which represent Jews from all around the world, including the World Jewish Congress and other organisations. And having it in writing in the Constitution, it's a tool that can be used when incidents do come up, as an educational tool to compare and to understand if this is anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism it manifests in different ways. It kind of hides itself, and the same tropes can manifest in a whole bunch of different ways. And what the IRA tool does is it allows someone who may not have a deep understanding of the Jewish community to look at the tool, to learn more, and to understand whether or not this fits into the definition of anti-Semitism that teams identify. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. I think Borges and we fully support and are in support of having the IRA definition as a part of your writing and what we stand for and policies. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions about the IRA definition itself.
Any further questions on
I
that?
have one last question for Isaac, but he was gone now.
No, sorry, we just need to fix something in the statement that we sent
Okay.
up just now. Yes, Isaac.
Yes.
I just also want to know, so with this, I understand that obviously there's been a lot going on with UX and student media and the like, but was this something that you submitted a long time ago that Oscar neglected to put in, or is this new? Because the first I heard of this was half an hour beforehand.
Again, apologies that I wasn't able to put that in the initial draft.
I had flagged it with Oscar that it was something I was going to raise. I believe I sent it to him a few days ago, and as with the other motion, we have both been incredibly, busy in relation to the report. So it is another thing that was lost. But that being said, for the same reasons as previous, I don't think that this will have any, negative effects that you should be concerned about. It's already the policy of the board. It's just formally recognising it, which I think is important to do, especially given recent events. And especially with, as I said, external organisations, the Premier, Prime Minister, speaking about what UX's position is on anti-Semitism. I think it's incredibly important that we as a board firmly make a statement that we reject anti-Semitism, we take anti-Semitism very seriously, and we accept this definition, which, as Alyssa has said, is widely recognised by the Jewish community as being a very appropriate definition. So I think it's very important, and I hope that everyone here agrees and votes in favour of my motion.
Any questions, concerns? There's none. Regarding power granted in clause 21 of the AU Constitution, this board resolves to amend clause 4.2.13. No board directors may engage in sexist, racist, anti-Semitism, or discriminatory behavior against any persons associated with UX or otherwise. Add clause 4.2.13.1, the following non-legally binding working definition of anti-Semitism by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance (IHRA) is adopted. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestation of anti-Semitisms are directed towards Jews or non-Jewish individuals and all their property towards Jewish communities, institutions, and religious facilities, and authorizes the EO to alter the master copy accordingly. Moved by Isaac. Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Luke. Is there any dissent? I think not. That I declare that carries. Any other business?
Yeah, you need to, in your interaction with the media policy that you all approved last time, it actually refers to the wrong clause to be amended.
Oh, okay.
So
That's the policy.
it was in your last minutes, you were concerning, it was interaction with the media, wasn't it? Felix? Interaction with the media policy.
So was it
resolved to amend clause 2.1, and it's actually clause 2.2 you need to amend.
We'll just put that as administrative changes for the president to make. That's everyone's happy with that.
So we better run through.
Yeah, I would. I'll put that down in my next report again.
Get it on the website tomorrow.
Thank you, Gary. Any other business? There's none. I move the meeting in camera at 7:48 p.m.
Just before you do,
yes.
I'd just like to thank the members of the Jewish community who came to speak on what I'm sure is a difficult topic. And I think that your contributions to the discussion were incredibly helpful. So thank you to everyone who spoke.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we will move in camera at 7:48 p.m.
Full plug on transparency.
Goodbye, everyone.